I remember when I worked on the ranch, we had this stuff called monkey butt that you'd rub on your butt when you got a little saddle sore. So I'm sure that there is some.
That sentence. When I, all the words in that sentence. From ranch all the way to saddle sore. All of it.
Welcome to Going In Tight.
Coming out loose. Welcome back, everybody, to Going In Tight, Coming Out Loose. This is Chris Gibson, your host, and with me always is Bart Lewis. How's it going, Bart?
Oh, pretty good.
All righty. Well, we had a weekend that wasn't as filled with racing because the Kansas race was Thursday. We had some okay racing in the lower series, but what did you think of that race that we had in Kansas this past week?
It was pretty good. Definitely a lot of different things happening. The race took off about midway through with a lot of different exciting things. The beginning of it was a little concerning. Ricky Stenhouse mullet almost caught on fire.
Mm-hmm.
He had some sort of fire going on in the cockpit of it, which you don't see very often.
Yeah.
So JTG Doherty is having a tough time right now.
Yeah.
In the past, I think 3 or 4 races, one of them, either Stenhouse Jr. or Ryan Preece, have finished dead last. But yeah, it was a good race. Some hard hits. Ryan Preece was one of those that hurt me to watch.
I mean, he went head on into the wall and came up off the ground. I mean, it's rough. Some of the hits that we've been getting without the prep and without the practice, it seems like that's playing a role in some of these super, super hard hits that we've been getting.
Yeah, Matty D was another one that took a hard hit. Just continuing on with the bad luck that he's having with consistency. Good cars. He's getting up there, so I hate to see that. Kyle Busch finally got a stage win, which is weird to say in late July.
Yeah, he I think it was good that he got a stage win, but ultimately, he got the 10 points and then got the playoff point for the stage win. But the rest of the race after that first stage, he was up there, but he ended up still finishing outside the top 10, which it seems like to be a lot of the issue with guys like Joey Logano and some of the other veterans in the field. They're running well for portions of the race, but they can't put a full race together. So it is good that he got a stage win, but still finishing outside the top 10, I know isn't what's on his radar for any race.
Yeah, I had him to win. I thought he would win it. Ultimately, I think he'll be fine. He's good at some of the tracks that we have coming. I mean, he's good at most tracks. I think he's won at all of them. So I don't doubt that he'll get into the playoffs. But weird to see him sort of not take off. Not really. I wouldn't consider one stage win taking off, but it's late July. He needs to get it together if he wants to contend for the championship. William Byron, somebody who is on that bubble, moved himself inside to the playoffs, the top 16.
Yep.
With some cool strategy. Chad Knaus out with new baby.
Yep.
Harvick got up there towards the end. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? And then he kind of fell back. And then Hamlin came up there. So it's 2020, the year of COVID, the year of Harvick and Hamlin. That's just what's happening this year.
Yeah, and Harvick, I was listening to the Radioactive that came out for Kansas, and it seems like that 4 team, we've been watching every single race, and for some reason the 4 team thinks the 9 has something out for him.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I saw, they pieced that radio with him sort of like drafting with him, passing him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the deal is there.
Yeah, I haven't
seen anything.
I haven't seen a whole lot of anything, but it was interesting. Now I'm going to have to watch closely to see if they're bumping doors or pushing each other around the track or something, because I haven't heard anything until that came out and they headlined the Radioactive with that. But another driver that did well is Cole Custer, got a P7 finish, another top 10 for him. So he is coming on pretty strong after you have at the beginning of the season gave him a little gruff, and then you and I had both talked about the failures that Eric Jones has seen and not seeming to live up to JGR. He himself found a top 10 on
2 top 10s.
Sunday.
He won in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, so it's as we've talked about that stuff, you continue to be the anti-prophet for NASCAR for everybody other than Jimmie Johnson, and we'll get into that later. But I thought it was pretty good racing, and then it was interesting to have that race on Thursday night, and then have the rest of the weekend be Xfinity and trucks. And what race do you have on behind you? What year is that?
That's last year. It's Eldora. Trucks aren't racing there this year, and
Mhm.
I love watching those trucks race on the dirt, so had to turn it on.
Well, and speaking of Eldora, Matt Crafton is the guy who won the race this past weekend. His last win was in 2017 at Eldora. So kind of cool to see him break a streak. They were going through all these different guys who have been on these dry spells, whether it be in Cup or whether it be in trucks. So it was cool to see him get a win. Brandon Jones got the Xfinity win, and he has had, you want to talk about a rough time, ever since he wrecked on like the first lap at Pocono during the back-to-back weekend. He has had a rough go at it. He's been wrecked out. He's been thrown off the track, struggled to finish a race. So it was good to see him get a win there. And then the ARCA race wasn't too great. Deegan got a ninth place finish there. So that's mainly the person that I watch when I'm watching those ARCA races. So still got a top 10 finish, and after she's come back from a couple hard weeks. So overall, people finding success in the lower series that have struggled a little bit. But I think the overall, Kansas did bring us some good racing. Another one of those tracks where we have talked about it might not bring us good racing. It's brought us some exciting stuff. And I thought it was overall a positive racing weekend. And now we have a little bit longer until we get up to New Hampshire.
True or false? All right, everybody, it's time to play True False. You guys liked it the first time. We're bringing it back this time. The theme is obscure NASCAR sponsors. Were they or were they not a sponsor? So I've got 10 different sponsors here. See if I can stump Chris. You ready to play, Chris?
Yep.
You seem really excited about it.
It seems like I'm always the one that we make look stupid here. So, but I'm down for it because I need to be educated just as much as anybody else.
All right, number 1, Cartoon Network. Was it or was it not a sponsor? True or false?
I'm going to say that's true.
It is, yeah. Okay. That one was actually a sponsor for a good while. It was from 1996 to 2000. 4 different drivers wore that on their car. So that was indeed a sponsor at one time. Yeah. Number 2, Viagra.
You know, with the older demographic that NASCAR seems to reach, I want to say yes. But at the same time, I want to say I'm going to say true.
It is true. Mark
Nice.
Martin and Roush, number 6, he did have the Viagra car.
So what year was it? Do you know what year that was?
I can't remember. It had to be probably early 2000s, I'd say.
Okay. All right.
All right. So you're 2 for 2 here.
Okay.
All right. Number 3, Kim Kardashian once sponsored a car.
False.
It's true. She had a perfume. Don't know the name of it. But yeah, she sponsored Mike Bliss's car in 2010.
You're so uncultured. You uncultured swine, not knowing Kim Kardashian's.
Well, I'm sure she's had like 14 more since then.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sure.
All right. So got one wrong. Next one, number 4, Angry Birds.
I'm going to say Angry Birds is not true. False.
That's correct. Yeah, it is false. F1 actually had an Angry Birds sponsored car. So
okay.
It did happen. It just wasn't NASCAR.
Okay. I see.
All right. Yeah, good job. All right. Number 5, Farmville.
Oh, man. That's a throwback.
That's one of the best.
Yeah, that's like freshman year of college, trying to make sure that my farm was growing exponentially more than everybody else's. Farmville. I'm going to say that's true.
It is true. Of all
Yes.
people, in 2005, Jeff Gordon was sponsored by Farmville
Oh
for a
my
race.
gosh.
Yeah,
Just one race.
just one. I think it was just one race. Yeah, but
Is
yeah,
that game still around? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
Let's bring it back, everybody. Everybody start going to download Farmville.
I can remember looking in like I'm a college class, like sitting in the top and looking like at everyone's computer screen, and everyone was playing Farmville.
Oh yeah, it was dedication. You had to harvest, you had to plant, you had to grow, you had to build houses and different farms. Oh my God, I remember that. It was a lot of fun. I probably wasn't. I mean, I didn't go to class a whole lot, so I was probably just playing it in my dorm room. But yeah. That's crazy, Farmville.
It was like the college version of Gigapets or whatever,
Yeah.
Chimagachis or whatever you call it.
Oh, man.
All right, moving on. Number 6.
Okay.
True or false? Lycos.net sponsored a car.
Lycos.
Lycos used to be a search engine. Could still be. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. I don't even know what that is. I'm going to say false.
It's true. Lycos was just like Google, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo, all those. Ask Jeeves.
Bing.
Bing, still around. Bing is. But yeah, Lycos.net sponsored Johnny Benson in 2000. I believe the Ty something was the team, and it ended up being a lawsuit. And I forget all the details. But basically, Lycos never paid up for the sponsorship of the car. I think
that's what you need.
They gave them a lot of vouchers for internet credit for sponsors, like paid ads. I don't think they even fulfilled that. So,
oh my
Lycos.net, not a great partner to have.
Yeah, just stay away from them.
For anyone looking to make investments in the future. All right. Number 7, The Notebook, the movie. Did someone sponsor? Did they sponsor a car or did they not? True or false?
The Notebook. I mean, there are so many weird sponsors out there. I don't know. Yes, true.
It's false. They did not.
I mean, I didn't think very long on that one. I doubt that is the target market for The Notebook. The Nicholas Sparks, I'm sure, isn't.
Of all movies, I mean, we've seen Jurassic Park. We've seen, I don't know, something else. We've never seen The Notebook in the NASCAR. So
yeah,
in the NASCAR. All right, moving on. We'll get over that one. Boudreaux's butt paste. Did Boudreaux's butt paste sponsor a car?
100% true.
It's true. Some driver named Kim Crosby in the early 2000s in the Busch Series was sponsored by Boudreaux's butt paste.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, there's lots of jobs out there. I remember when I worked on the ranch, we had this stuff called monkey butt that you'd rub on your butt when you got a little saddle sore. So I'm sure that there is some.
That sentence, all the words in that sentence, from ranch all the way to saddle sore, all of it.
Well, I mean, I'm just telling you, there is a variety of rectal and rear end issues that you can have whenever you're doing stuff. So I could just see. I mean, there's market for butt paste. That's all I'm trying to say.
I figured they'd call it something different. But butt paste, I mean, it's straight to the point. You don't have to wonder.
Yeah, you're not searching for a long time for that one when you're in the pharmacy aisle. You just, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yep, that's it. All right, number 9, Affliction, the clothing brand. Did they or did they not sponsor a car?
I'm going to say false.
It was true. Matt Kansas.
You're not even going to give it a go, are you?
Matt Ken, yes. He did. The Affliction brand sponsored Matt Kansas.
Okay, next.
I can't say it. Just get over it. All right, number 10, the final one. I don't even know why I put that one in there. If I had to say, I didn't even think that I was going to have to say his name. All right, number 10, final one. The WCW, the Wrestling League. Did they or did they not sponsor a car NASCAR?
I'm going to say no. No,
it's
false.
true. They did.
I don't know why I thought they wouldn't. I mean,
Kyle Petty,
races
they
are
sponsored. I think this is in the like mid '90s. Sponsored
yeah.
Kyle Petty's car. So let's see, what'd you get? You got Cartoon Network, Viagra, Farmville. You got the Notebook wrong. I think you got. What'd you get? 4? You got 4, right?
40%. Sounds about right for me testing on things. So,
well, it's not. These aren't common knowledge, but anyway, thanks for playing. You're gonna need some butt paste after that one, but sorry, Chris.
I'll be giving Boudreaux a call.
True or false?
Alrighty, moving on, folks. This is our main topic of the evening. We are going to dive into Jimmie Johnson, the man, the myth, the legend, wondering why he has fallen off recently, but also recapping and kind of giving an ode to somebody who really reshaped NASCAR and achieved something that nobody else has, and has also achieved a feat that very few have. I just want to give some history here of this guy that we're talking about. So Jimmie Johnson, everybody knows, is the guy who for the longest time drove the Lowe's car, but he started back racing when he was like 4 years old, and he was driving motorcycles. He was racing dirt bikes. And he started very, very young. After 3 years of being in racing, won his first championship racing 60cc bikes. And then he raced in stadium off-road races and some of the desert races for off-road. And in 1993 was actually offered to go race drag with the very accomplished Herb Fisher. So I'm not a big drag fan, but I have heard that name, and I'm sure some people who are into that have. But he actually turned that down. And people started early on noticing that he had some potential. So he worked his way up through the off-road series. He ended with 25 wins, 100 top 3 finishes, 6 championships across all off-road series. And when he was a rookie, he won Rookie of the Year honors in each of the 3 major series in off-road racing. So kind of like we've talked about with a lot of these drivers, you're looking for somebody to move up into the Xfinity. You're looking to have somebody move up into Cup who is very experienced no matter where they're coming from. Jimmie was one of those guys. Then he started racing full-time in the Busch Series in 2000, which is now the Xfinity Series. And, he was accomplished there, but he wasn't there long before he was pulled up into the Cup Series. And Bart, I'll let you talk about some of his accomplishments in the Cup Series so that I don't go too fangirl on him here.
Yeah, he was in the Busch Series for, I believe, 4 years. He ended up getting a part-time slot with Hendrick. In 2001, he raced 3 races and then started full-time in 2002. We talk about rookies on this podcast and how hard it is for somebody who somebody who's been so good in those lower tier Busch, Xfinity trucks, and then move up to the Cup, which is such a higher level of racing that it's nearly impossible to win a race the first year out. You're getting used to your car, you're getting used to your team. There's a lot of different things that are different, and it's just hard to compete. You're just trying to get your bearings and get everything set up to go out there and compete the next year. He won a race his first full-time year. Go figure. 2002, his first race was at his home track in Fontana, California.
Yeah.
So since that, over a span of 660 races since 2001, he's had 35 poles, 341 top 10s, 222 top 5s, and 83 wins. Let that sink in for a second. 83 wins. That's like top 10 drivers of all time. He is no question going into the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
no question.
Yeah, no questions at all.
And so not only has he had that many wins, because we see other drivers that were up there, but they didn't have the championships to accompany it. This guy has 7. So right there next to Richard Petty, right there next to
Dale Sr.
Earnhardt. Yeah, Dale Sr. So, I mean, he's up there with greatness. on top of that, he won 5 straight, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. He dominated NASCAR from 2005 to 2010. He won all of the championships. He's winning all the races. He just got in that car and it clicked like it does for some of the greats like Jeff Gordon and David Pearson and all these great drivers who's won tons of races, and he just picked it up and he took off with it. So even when he wasn't winning, like his first year, he finished, I believe he finished 5th in the standings his first year out. Then he finished second again, and then 5th before he won his first championship. So it wasn't like he was out there doing nothing. He was out there doing well. But since then, which is kind of like the thing we want to talk about, not only just acknowledge the respect that we do have for Jimmie, and we're both fans of Jimmie, but it's just kind of confusing to us as fans of how somebody who can go from dominating for nearly 15 years to nothing. Because you see other drivers, they race up until their 50s, and it seems like it was short-lived with Jimmie. He accomplished a lot in such short a time, and now he's moving on. So he won his last race in 2017, last race at Dover. So it's been 3+ years since that race in June of 2017 since he won. We've seen 10 Hendrick cars win races since then. So we've seen Casey Kane win a race, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott. We've seen all those drivers win a race, and Jimmie just hadn't got up to the front and contended. And we've just kind of seen lackluster performances with such optimism that he's going to turn it around. With such optimism that it's going to be the year he gets to win. Or with such optimism, it's his final year. He's retiring. We're sad to see him go, but I mean, let's see him chase that 8.
Yeah, it's been frustrating, and I'm sure it's been 10 times more frustrating for him than us. But this is a guy. So I collected all these Sports Illustrated. I've talked to you about this for probably like 7 years, and it was right in the height of when Jimmie Johnson was winning back to back championships, and this is how they described him. So if it tells you anything, what the world and what the sports world and Sports Illustrated thought of NASCAR, he made one front cover as the main story. But they said Jimmie Johnson has 3 straight championships, millions in prize money and endorsement deals, planes, a mansion, a loft in Manhattan, and a beautiful woman who's crazy about him. Yeah, he's Tom Brady in a fire suit. So they were praising this guy from a sport that, in the mid-2000s was still searching for identity. And it was the big stories were him and Dale Earnhardt Jr. most of the time. And that's what people knew of NASCAR. Since 2017, when the playoff rules took a really big change and they started implementing the playoff rounds and the stage points, it's kind of fallen off. And I know that you've mentioned it's almost like they changed the rules so that Jimmie Johnson couldn't win any more playoffs or any more championships. So 7 championships later, and the end of his career has just been kind of monotonous. And this one final time season has not only been marred by the current pandemic and everything, but just streaks of bad mistakes and bad luck. And I personally think that his mind is just outside of NASCAR. He was testing an IndyCar this past weekend with Chip Ganassi. I think he's got potential to do things. He's clearly got a good car. We've seen him running in the top 10, but at this point, I'm more questioning his dedication. But you have found some skepticism around, the race following that 2017 win at Dover.
Yeah, there's so many different reasons and speculations on why it is that Jimmie just kind of fell apart in 2017 and just hasn't really bounced back. So one of those would be commitment, which everybody who knows him and everybody who's involved in NASCAR or broadcasting just speaks to the level of dedication that he has, not only from preparing for the car, for the track, but his mental and physical shape to be prepared to go out there and contend. Right. So it's just hard for me to believe that that's the case. But also I don't really believe this either, but there's a bit There's a video out there that pretty much sums up he had a really hard wreck at Pocono right after that win at Dover. I don't know if it was a brake issue or something. He went in and he smacked the wall hard, like so hard he got out of the car and he sat on the wall for a while and kind of caught his breath. I know that concussions can happen in cars, and I'm not saying that's what happened or that's the reason why, but that is a reason out there that people have speculated could be the reason why. Another would just be the general package. We talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Chevy changed the Camaro. Hendrick in general has not done as well in the past 5 years as they've done in the past 15 years, or even 35 years. It was part of a team that was trying to rally around a new package, and they were just floundering for a little while. Chevy in general. So another would be age. He's really not that old. So I don't know. Anything else you could scrounge up as to why?
No, and all of these things, like this man is like no stranger to hard hits. He wasn't winning championships just beating everybody by 4 and 5 laps. When he was in the Busch series, it was either the Busch series or very, very early on. He had a terrible wreck at Watkins Glen when his brakes went out. He had to swerve around another car and took it head on. Now, he was a little bit older in 2017 when this other wreck happened. He was a young gun back then, but he got out of the car and put his fists up like he won the race just because he was lucky to walk away from it. So the man's taken hard hits. I don't think it's something related to anything that we really can pinpoint, to be honest, because it really seems like a driver who's got the yips, with the running into Ty Dillon on a caution lap when he came down into Brad Keselowski, and it was like a block was thrown 3 or 4 seconds late, whether it was a spotter issue, whatever it may be, still something that was just, out of the realm of what somebody with his experience does. So I really can't pinpoint it. My only thing is I know this year that his car has the possibility. Chevy has shown that they can put their cars up front. I don't know what it is that they're not putting them in victory lane. And I can only hope that he gets there, because I mean, he's just got an absolute stellar resume. Two Daytona 500s, 4 Coca-Cola 600s, 4 Brickyard 400s, 2 Southern 500s, 11 Dover wins, and 9 Martinsville wins. I mean, these are numbers that are unheard of. He's got so many firsts and so many records that he holds himself. He's tied with, 2 of the greatest in history, and I think he's one of the greatest in history. But there have been some other drivers like you, and I think you looked them up. There are some guys like Darrell Waltrip and those that when they were on their way out, they seem to have some of these same issues.
Well, that's kind of like what I was trying to think of, is maybe this is okay. This is something that happens when a driver hits the tail end of his career and they just kind of lose the competitive nature. They're more cautious. Sometimes they go to different rides. In this case, he's in the same top tier equipment. But there are some drivers, some of the greats like Jeff Gordon and Bobby Allison. They won in their final year, contended for a championship. Dale Earnhardt, 49 when he was killed, but he still won 2 races that year. He probably still had another good 5-10 years that he would have raced. But then there's others, great drivers, some of the best, all in the Hall of Fame on the other end of that. So Cale Yarborough, no wins in his final 3 years. So for his final 3 years, he won. That's
kind of like Jimmie.
Yeah, 80 plus races, and he didn't win. He didn't win in his final 3 years. Rusty Wallace, he had 2 wins in his final 5 years. 2 wins in his final 5 years, and he's up there in the same in with all the peers that have won 50 plus races.
Right.
And then you look at some of the really greats like Richard Petty in his final 8 years. 8 no wins, 8 years, and then Darrell Waltrip, one of the greatest that there ever will be, and 9 years. He didn't win a race in 9 years. His final 9 years.
That's incredible. So I mean, I don't want to say like I hate playing age into it because if there is one thing that we have to say is the lifetime of driving a car is a little bit longer than most sports, but is the technology changing so often on these guys now that it makes it tougher? I mean, as you look through the end of the careers, and I haven't done this, but I wonder if you look through when Cale Yarborough was finishing his career, were there tons of changes that were taking place? Were there tons of changes that were taking place to the packages? Because we've seen drastic changes. The cars from the days when Darrell Waltrip and Rusty Wallace and those guys were racing don't have near the technology, near the safety equipment now. And we're seeing a lot more inexperience come into NASCAR in recent years, whereas it used to be if you didn't cut your teeth to get to the top, when Jeff Gordon came in, and he had done a lot to get to that point, but there were people that still looked at him and were like, you haven't done everything you need to do to get here. I just wonder if there's something there that it really is harder than we think to adapt to a new package, to adapt to a new car, like you said, changing over to the Camaro. So, I'm hopeful for this one final time that he's going out. I hope that he can get into the playoffs and at least be a part of that competition. But I would hate for his last 2 years, as they've changed this system, for him to not even be in competition and just be out there, running for the fun of it to end things.
Yeah. Another point is it's getting harder to cheat
Mm-hmm.
for some of those old drivers.
Yeah.
Even new. They're changing the packages, they're changing rules. They might have found a loophole that it was good for them for a long time. And then that kind of just ran dry. I'm not saying that's it either, but
Hey.
I mean, that is a component of NASCAR that, you do. So you look for advantages to give your car more speed, more advantage over the rest. And that's how you win. Just racing against, 40 cars that are identical. And I hated that this is his last year, because I wish he could have spent it with the fans going to all these tracks,
Right.
all the fans getting to see him one last time, race one last time, him to just see the impact and all the stuff that he's brought to the sport, and the lasting impact that he will have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sad for me to see that he won't really have that. And a little bit of me hopes that he'll just change his mind in a couple months and say, you know what, why not? I'll do it one more year. Feel like we almost got there in 2020. Why not give it another year in 21? But whatever the case, he's definitely one of the greats, and we hate to see him go.
Yeah, well, and they did say that sliver of hope that they give you, they did say that it's not he's retiring from full-time racing. So, there's been speculation that you could see him run at his home track, like a Fontana or a Sonoma or a Watkins Glen or something like that. So the sliver of hope for us Jimmie Johnson fans, we may not be done seeing him, but looks like he's pretty dead set on getting his butt in one of those Ganassi Indy cars.
All right, it's that time again. We're going to talk about silly season. More things are happening, and we want to talk about it. So there's a lot of potential movement, a lot of different rumors floating around. So let's just talk about some of them. We've pretty much boiled down that there could be a move at Stewart-Haas with Clint Bowyer.
Yep.
Clint Bowyer says he wants to stay. I don't know that he'll get that chance. I kind of honestly a little surprised that he was here this year. I thought he was going to retire last year.
Right.
He's not bad, but he's
not at the level of his teammates.
Right. So he's got some good consistency, but he's not giving results where I think we could see someone else in that car. So
yeah,
personally, I think there's 3 options.
What are they?
Could be Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe is dominating the Xfinity Series. I think he's proved that he can be a contender in the Cup.
And he's part of that team.
Yep, he is part of that team. So that would make the most logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Kyle Larson. So we've talked about this before. Kyle Larson's out there racing dirt because he got kicked out of NASCAR. But I think that would be more the almost obvious spot for him to go. For him, I think that he wants to come back, that he would definitely get paid more. But at the end of the day, I don't think he wants to go to a worse team than where he was at. Chip Ganassi is a pretty good team. And number 3, and we're going to talk about more, but I think if we don't see Brad Keselowski move, which I don't think we'll see him move from Penske, even though he's in a contract here, I think he'll stay there.
Right.
It could be Austin Cindric. He's at Penske in the Xfinity Series. I could see that potentially still Ford. I could see him going to that spot. Obviously, that's a stretch because Chase Briscoe would be the obvious one for that open spot, but you never know.
Yeah, and I think Briscoe is going to be a hot topic as we get towards the end of the year. I think there's going to be, I think Ford Performance is going to want to hang on to that kid. So I think they're going to be vying with wherever there's an open spot with Ford. I read an article a few days ago that the inconsistency with Matty D, that they would even move him and feed him into the Wood brothers and feed him on up. And I think that's a stretch as well. But I was reading about that, and apparently there are some unhappy people with, where Matty D is finished towards the top and then, wrecked out of a few races. I hadn't heard it until I read this article, but that's the sillier thing that I've heard out of all of that.
That's pretty silly. I hadn't heard that. That's a stretch. Matty D is an incredible driver. He took really bad equipment and he showed progression out of it. I don't think that would be a dumb decision.
I agree. And I thought it was a dumb decision for the team that let him go last year to give up his position. But, it's silly season and people are going to come up with whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah. And speaking of the team that he was at last year, Levine Family Racing, they took Christopher Bell this year in the number 95.
Yep.
Which is I forget what it is, like some sort of partnership with Joe Gibbs Racing. So I think they share their secrets, only half of them. And
definitely only half of them.
But they've talked about shutting down. So that team wouldn't exist any longer, which is so weird because that was the same deal with Furniture Row Racing.
Yeah.
They're also the same partnership. So it's like, what is Joe Gibbs doing to these? How much are they having to pay them?
Yeah, it's like they keep the people on the hook, and then you just see them dissipate into nothing.
But I think if that was actually the case, and it still may be the case, even if they don't do this, but even though Eric Jones has shown some promise and quietly got into the top 10 after not dominating any race, I don't see him in that spot. So regardless, I do think that it would make most sense for Christopher Bell to go there to the 20. He has shown that he can put something together on his first year. So I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, I think that they were trying to groom Eric Jones and it didn't turn out like they wanted. There's a lot of people out there that seem to have this weird positivity that there's going to be a big team that goes after Eric Jones if he doesn't get his contract renewed. I just haven't seen what I wanted, but then again, you look at these stats and he gets these random top 10s, and if we keep talking bad about him, or if you keep talking bad about him, he's going to start winning races.
Well, you see these drivers, they dominate the Xfinity Series and they win championships, and you just the logical thing to do is look at Chase Briscoe or look at Austin Dillon or look at Eric Jones or look at Chase Elliott, and you look at them and you say, oh, they're going to be a big star. They're going to be the next Jeff Gordon. They're going to be the next Jimmie Johnson. They're going to be the next Kevin Harvick. And they get to the Cup, and that doesn't happen. They don't take off.
Right.
It's I don't know what it is that's so different about it. I mean, there is more. I mean, it's different, but you think that they weren't used to the Xfinity ride, and they got used to it. So what is it about the Cup car that doesn't click where they can't take off, especially when they're driving Joe Gibbs Racing equipment? So I don't know. I think another thing is silly that I'm seeing articles talking about the 48 that has Eric Jones's name on it. Yeah, I don't think so. Not a chance.
Good Lord. Yeah, no way. I don't think. I've heard some crazy stuff, and obviously there's going to be. It's one of the biggest cars, one of the biggest numbers in the sport, and I saw that, and all I could do was laugh and hope to God no, because I just don't think he's a guy that's had equipment. We got to see him get his first win in Daytona, and I just don't see that panning out well. I don't see Hendrick being able to groom somebody, especially with some of the rumors of possibly shrinking down to 3 cars and
Mm-hmm.
either doing away with the 24. But I think the more logical piece is to do away with the 88. They've had Chevy Goods and Chevy Parts sponsoring the car the whole time, which is pretty much just a manufacturer sponsorship that's not bringing in money. And then they've had Cincinnati C1 sponsor a couple of races. But if you're not, like we've said before, if you're not bringing in sponsorship, you're not going to run the car long. I would be fine if they move Bowman into the 48, where he's Allies contracted to sponsor that car for every single race for a few more years. So I would really like to see him move there. I don't see them moving William Byron into the 48. I think they're going to keep that 24. Exalta is a pretty good sponsor for them, and I think Liberty, I think they're going to keep him there. But there's definitely a ton of talk going on there. Who else have you heard that's going to go into the 48?
Yeah, so I've seen the rumors as well as shrinking the team to 3, which from a business standpoint, I get it. Sponsorship drives revenue, which drives the team, which drives success. But at the end of the day, I want to see Hendrick have 4 cars. I want to see
100%.
somebody else go into that 48. I want to see the 24 and the 88 remain. I do think Byron will remain. I think Bowen's doing a really great job. Elliott's obviously really doing a great job. So if that's not the case, I think that the most logical choice, it would be Tyler Reddick. I think we would see Tyler Reddick, just based on what I've seen so far. I think he's going to be a very big star in NASCAR, and he's going to compete really well. So I think he would be the best fit. There's obviously still a chance Keselowski could go from Penske down to Hendrick, which I don't really foresee that happening. Some people are really convinced that is. Keselowski's already said that he's happy where he's at, but
right.
That doesn't really mean a whole lot.
You never know when the money gets thrown on the table.
Yeah, but there's also Chastain, which I think the whole reason he didn't take the 42 when Larson left, and they put Matt Kay in is because he's competing for a championship in Xfinity, so they don't want to mess with that.
Right.
It was halfway through the season, so it's not like there's a whole lot of hope that he could get into the playoffs. So why not just put somebody else in there that has a history with the car, has a history with success, see what they can shake out and do, and then give him that ride next year. So I think Chastain will go into the 42. I think Matt will go back into retirement. There's also a chance it could be another driver. Corey LaJoy, his son, who's racing for Go Fast Racing, I think he wrote Rick Hendrick a letter and said that he wanted to be considered for the ride. He isn't a bad driver. I think he's a pretty decent driver given what he is working with. I don't see him going to Hendrick. I do see him as a potential candidate for that 42 as well. If Chastain doesn't go there, say Chastain goes to 48, I think that he would be the most logical next choice for that car.
Right.
But there's also another choice, and that's Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace has gotten to the point now where he is getting a lot of sponsorship opportunities. He's in the news a lot for a good reason, and people want to sponsor him. People are talking about him, and people want to put their name on the side of his car because that is what the whole point of sponsorship is for. So I could see Bubba Wallace going to a different team other than Richard Petty Motorsports. So that's my thought there. You have any different insights on those?
No, I actually, had it written down in my notes that the LaJoy letter was pretty interesting to me, writing this, heartfelt letter of why he wants to be a part of a team like that. It's very interesting that he wrote it across manufacturers. He's racing in a Ford right now. So I don't know what the rules are there. I know that it's not exactly like encouraged that you sit there and talk super well about how the other packages are doing. But
there's a general understanding though with Go Fast, looking at Corey, who is still really young and wants to progress his career.
Right.
I mean, he went out on a limb there and did what most drivers would never do,
Yeah.
is put himself out there and say, hey, I don't want to just, have my driving speak for itself. I want you to know that I want to be considered for this.
Yeah, I admire that. And, I think he's a good guy. I disagree with some of the things that he said about Quinn Houff, but I think that Corey LaJoie is a good guy. I do think if he gets into better equipment, I'd be interested to see what he did. And that's why I think you could see him in a place like the 42. I would really like to see Bubba Wallace, like you said, get into a team that has a little bit more money behind them, because he has put that car in top 10 position. He's consistently had them, vying in that top 15. So I would really like to see where he gets to. And like you said, he's a huge advocate for the sport and bringing social justice to the sport and inclusion and bringing other people in. So I don't exactly know where I see him fitting in when you've got the likes of, a Reddick, when you've got guys down in the Xfinity series who are just, they're those top 5 guys, top 6 guys are just really, really good racers. Haley's a good racer. Somebody's going to be trying to reach out to Gragson here in a year or two. So I don't know if there will be people that bide their time, but it's definitely going to be interesting as we get farther into the year.
Yeah, I think for Noah and for Harrison Burton, I think those two will definitely be in the Cup. I think they're a little bit too young at this point,
I
too
agree.
fresh. They need to hash it out and maybe beat each other up a few more times in Xfinity before they move up. But I do think that they'll end up getting there. I think right now the obvious choices in Xfinity would be Chase Briscoe and Austin Cindric. Those are in Chastain. Even Justin Haley's really putting together a great season, so I could potentially see him be considered maybe for a mid-tier team. But there's going to be some movement. I think this rookie class in general is probably one of the best we've seen in 5 years.
I agree.
And I think we're going to see some shuffling around of those guys. John Hunter Nemechek's really doing well, I think, given the equipment that he's in. We're seeing him pop up and him be in the top, him in the front during the races consistently. And then you're going to see some other drivers shuffle. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he moved from Roush Fenway. He went down to JTG Doherty, hard to say, like Matt Kansas. And which I wouldn't say down. I would say over. Pretty comparable equipment, maybe a little less competitive. I think he's kind of on his way out. He's one of those other drivers that dominated in Xfinity and really never took off in Cup. He does have his tracks, but I do think he's on his way out. Ryan Preece is getting a hard time right now because he's had 3 last place finishes. I do think that it's not necessarily all his fault, so I don't think he should lose his ride for that. And then there's just general speculation over Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman had one of the worst crashes I've ever seen in my life. It made me so sick to my stomach that night I could not eat dinner. Like it was just sickening to see that.
Yeah, you and I were texting back and forth quite a bit during that. I'd hate to see him go though. Yeah,
but I mean stuff like that. When you have a head injury, it doesn't go away, and it doesn't necessarily. If it happens again, it only gets worse. It doesn't. It's not like it healed completely and you're fine. Repeated head injuries can really have a lasting effect on your quality of life. And I know that he cares about his family, even though he has a deep passion for racing and he is competitive. He's taken equipment that isn't necessarily top 10, top 5 cars and really became a contender. So I'd hate to see him go, but I would completely understand if he did. So we should see there. But there's definitely a lot of different spots. We just talked about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different potential openings, a lot of which are in some of the best equipment in NASCAR. So it should be interesting to see the shuffle.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So, I mean, we've talked about the shuffle a little bit, but some of the names that we just brought up in Reddick, Eric Jones, Jimmie Johnson, Clint Boyer, William Byron, and Matty D, these are guys that are all right now, whether they're in retirement or fighting for a ride, they're all vying for playoff position right now. And,
Mm-hmm.
We've got, in my opinion, you've got Matty D, Byron, and Boyer who are iffy. They're all less than 50 points above the cut line. So the playoffs are shaping up kind of crazy right now. And then you've got Reddick, Jones, and Johnson, and they're all less than 20 points below the cut line. So there's about 6 drivers. Who do you right now have locked in to the playoffs other than the drivers who we already know have won? You get down to Cole Custer, and then they're all locked in. And then from Almirola on, who do you think's locked into the playoffs, and who are your maybes and your no chances?
Sure. Yeah. So you got 10 locked in. You got 6 spots available. Really probably about, 10 contenders. So Amarella, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, Clint Boyer, Matty D. I think all of those will get into the playoffs.
Okay.
So that's 5. So that leaves 1 open spot. I may be on Byron, Reddick, Jones, or Johnson. It could be any of those guys. I really think that they're all putting together equal performances. So I wouldn't be surprised one way or another if it was Jones over Johnson over Reddick. I don't know. Bubba Wallace is at the tail end. He's really far out, so I don't think that he's going to get in. So those are my 4 maybes. But I do think as the point standings now, I think Amarola down to Matty D. I think those will all be in the top 16.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on Matty D. He's towing the line to me because he's less than 50 points above the cut. So I think when I looked at it, he's either 35 or 45 points above the cut. So he's still got to do some good racing to hold off guys like Byron, who have shown recently that they can run in the top 10 a little bit more. If Jimmie were to pull it together and rattle off, he's run that car in the top 5, and then last weekend got pinched in a wreck later in the race and just ran on some bad luck. But if a Tyler Reddick seems to crack off a win, if Jimmie Johnson can put his car in the right place, and if Byron were to crack off a win or keep putting his car in the right place, I think Matty D might be looking at some issues only being 40 points above the cut line. But that being said, he's still running really well. So I've got him in my maybes. So I don't have him out, and I'm not super concerned about it, but I don't have him locked in just yet.
Yeah, the way I think about Matty D is that I've seen very consistent performances out of him for the most part, minus when he has gotten into some wrecks, and that's really his downfall of what's happened this year. Before COVID, I forgot how many races we had, maybe 3 or 4. He was up there in the top.
Yeah.
With one of the highest average finishes in those first 3 or 4 races. He's showing consistency. I think he's just got into some wrecks that have really tanked him a little bit down further at this point. He's in equipment that isn't the best. It is good, but I do think he could win with him. I don't think he could win with somebody else. I don't think that you're going to see Paul Menard crank out a bunch of wins.
Right.
So I think he is going to use the equipment that he has and get the most out of it, and he's consistent. So I think that we'll see him get in, and that's why I think that. Eric Jones is another one that has shown consistency quietly. So I could see him getting in. So that's kind of how I see it.
I think it's just that those 6 that are right around, and we keep talking about them, that are right around that cut line, it's going to be super, super tight. And obviously, like we talked about with Jimmie Johnson earlier, it's going to be tight for him in this last season of full-time racing to be able to make a playoff push.
Well, that's why it's so fun to talk about, is because they are so close. So it's not like we're talking about, is Bubba Wallace going to make it? Probably not. It's because Bubba Wallace is 100 points below the cut line. It's anybody's to take or lose at this point. So it's fun to speculate
100%
on who could potentially get those final 6 spots. So we shall see.
Yeah. So when we go to New Hampshire this weekend, what are you looking at there? Do you think it's going to be fun racing? And who are some of the guys that you have that you consider locks to get in maybe a top 10.
I think it's going to be a good race. It's a shorter track. There's definitely some drivers that have shown some consistent performances at this track. So as I look to put my fantasy team together on the NASCAR app and elsewhere, the ones that I'm definitely putting on my lineup are going to be Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin. Kevin Harvick especially has shown a lot of consistency at this track. So he's likely going to be in the top 5. Kyle Busch has also been good at this track, and I think at this point he's getting hungry. Truex has a lot of consistency here. Blaney, he's on fire. Also does pretty well at this track, so I anticipate that him and also Brad Keselowski at Penske will be up towards the top 10. So those are the drivers I feel very confident about. There's also a good chance that Joey, his home track, Eric Almirola, Chase Elliott, Matty D will do well. More uncertainty around those, especially how they've been performing here lately, minus Eric Almirola. And then if you're really stretching, if you've used all of your uses of all of those drivers, there is hope. Eric Jones does consistently do well here. Ryan Newman does perform well here. And then one that is more of a guess, but anticipating how he has performed here in the Xfinity Series, I do think that we will see Christopher Bell up top. So those are my drivers. You got anybody that I'm not listing here?
No, I mean, I think, your safe picks are going to be Harvick. Obviously, he's won the past 2 races that we've had there since they moved it to only having 1 race in New Hampshire a year. He's won both of them. So I'm obviously going to have him in my fantasy lineup. And then Truex has had a top 10 the past 4 races there. So I don't see him falling outside. And he's a really solid guy from all the analysis that we do when, you do your spreadsheet and I do mine, and we're looking back at, race results from the past 4 or 5 races. Truex is a guy that if he's gotten a top 10 at a track, it seems like he's always going to get a top 10 at a track. So I feel very confident in him. And then, like you said, Ryan Blaney, he has done well at the track. And then he is like right on the cusp of grabbing another win. I think, he said they called him on Radioactive that they've kind of found the upside down horseshoe where their luck just seems to run out right at the end of the race. So I think they're knocking on the door to get another win there. What's the likelihood that you think that we're going to see a new winner?
I would like to see it. I'd love seeing new winners, regardless if it's somebody who's won previously or somebody's been around a while. I just like seeing that availability of the playoffs get shorter and shorter and shorter. It does create a sense of desperation. So you see those drivers on the bubble try harder. So it's getting down to the wire here. It's late July. We've got 1 month left, but there's still a lot of racing to go. So at this point, everyone's feeling a bit comfortable. I feel like they have a lot of chances to go out there and get something, put something together and lock themselves into the playoffs. But at the same time, why not, try now? Better now than at the very last moment. So I do think that we will see a chance that there's a new driver. However, I do think this is going to be a track that we see Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin take the W ultimately.
Yeah, and I feel like that too. I feel like it could be one of those where we have that tease the whole time of, a couple of those guys, the Cole Custers, the Christopher Bells, the Tyler Reddicks up in the top, and we're like, oh man, they could get there. And then, we're texting each other like, damn it, Denny Hamlin again or Kevin Harvick again. So, we'll see if somebody else can put a race together. But I'm really excited about the rest of the schedule coming up. I think these double headers that are coming up, where we've got back-to-back nights of Cup racing, are going to be really, really interesting because we saw in Pocono, it's kind of like practice for these guys. So, I'm excited for the rest of the schedule, and I think it's going to bring something interesting to it.
You like you said, we have 2 doubleheaders, one in Michigan, one at Dover. As you were mentioning earlier, Jimmie Johnson has won how many times at Dover? 11?
Hold on. Yeah, 11 wins at Dover. So
Jimmie Johnson has won.
The golden nugget.
Yeah, Jimmie Johnson has won 11, and he has 2 tries. So that's a good opportunity for Jimmie Johnson.
Yeah, to get dialed in there.
We get to see the Daytona road course that we've never seen NASCAR race on. So that's going to be interesting. No qualifying, no practice. It's going to be like the Roval, where the first time they raced that and they went into the first turn, it's just like, what is going to happen? Because you've seen them all qualify, you've seen them all practice spaced out, but you never saw all 4 of them go into the first turn of something they really don't know how to navigate too well. So then you end the race with, or you end the season with Daytona. I think we should see a lot of interesting things happen between now and then.
Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Going In Tight, Coming Out Loose. That is all we have for you today. If you have missed any of our episodes, you can find them on any major podcasting platform, Apple, Google, or Spotify. If you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, you can find us at GoingInTight_pod. And you can also find some articles and some of our brief updates on our website, goingintightpodcast.com. We look forward to talking to you all next week.